Richard Pullen. I'm Lincoln born and bred, archaeologist, and now Friends of the Lincoln Tanks chairman. I've written several books on tanks and articles and that kind of thing. It's sort of in the family history, and I think you find that with a lot of people in Lincoln. It's in the family.
Some say they won the First World War, the giant British Mark IV tanks, 28-ton fortresses which crawled across Europe at a maximum speed of 4 miles an hour. Today, one of the very tanks which fought at Cambrai returned to Lincoln, the birthplace of tanks.
The tank was invented here in Lincoln by a company called William Foster and Company, and their managing director was a man called William Ashby Tritton, and he was to become Sir William Ashby Tritton after the successful deployment of the tanks. But when the Landships project started to create these tanks, the military sent a man called Walter Wilson from the Royal Naval Air Service up to Lincoln to sort of keep an eye on these civilians building these machines. And Walter Wilson and William Tritton really did gel and became this dynamic design team between them. There were several designs before we got to what we would recognise as a true First World War tank. Elephant's Feet, Hetherington's Big Wheel, the Lincoln No. 1 machine, and eventually Little Willie. They were all prototypes of what we now know as the tank.
They were first built here, and today the mighty Mark IV drove through the streets of Lincoln, back home. Councillors cracked champagne to welcome back the tank, affectionately named Flirt.
The Mark IV female in the Museum of Lincolnshire Life is particularly interesting because it's always been known as Flirt 2. There's always been a bit of a question mark over how it could be, because Flirt 2 was captured by the Germans at the Battle of Cambrai in November 1917. So how did it get captured by the Germans and then end up back in England? And it's only very recently that I found a number inside that proves that it's not Flirt 2 at all. The tank is actually Daphne. It should be known as Daphne. It's a completely different tank. So Flirt 2 saw action at the Battle of Cambrai, but Daphne, unfortunately, didn't see action, but it was through no fault of her own. She was standing there ready to go into action at Passchendaele in the summer of 1917 when a stray German shell came through the roof and blew the inside out. Well, Lincoln South Common was the testing ground until William Foster's managed to buy their own piece of land to create their own testing ground. They tested their products on the South Common, as did most of the factories in Lincoln. Rustons and so on would go and test them there because of the gradients and the boggy ground. Little Willie, the prototype tank, was created. They took it straight down to the South Common and tested it there. It did very well. But the problem with Little Willie was those low tracks, which is why they had to create the rhomboid tracks for the tank. Tracks was a real problem. There were no tracks made in Europe at the time that were any good for the Landship project. They had to go to America. They tried the American tracks, but they were no good at all. So in the end, they had to redesign the track completely, and they did that right here in this room where we are today, in the White Hart Hotel. And this is where the track was actually designed, and that was the secret to the tank. This very strong, very simple track designed by the company's managing director, William Tritton, and it was called the Tritton track, and that was the secret to the tank. So this is the photograph we found when my grandfather passed away in 1982, and there he is sitting on the corner there in the light-coloured overalls, George Atkin. And he would have just been 16 at the time. I've spent the next 30 years trying to research what he could have told me in 20 minutes.
There to welcome it today were those who drove it and those who built it.
When you steer them, you've got to stop one track and the other one keeps going. Well, the weight to pull back, as you can imagine, with 37 tons, digging itself into the ground, or trying to, you can realise there's some drag on it, you see.
But did you feel safe inside them?
Oh, it was safe enough. I mean, to say, for everything that was flying about in those days, well, it was a mobile fort.
Ivy, you used to build these, didn't you?
Yes, I helped. I gathered all the nuts and bolts and sorted them out in the right things. So
When was that?
Well, when I first started in 1914.
What's it like to see the old girl again?
Oh, wonderful.
It shouldn't really be called the Tank Memorial, it's a memorial to the workers. When we stood there on the roundabout that day and the memorial was unveiled, I was so proud to stand there and know that I was a part of that, and I was doing that for my grandfather, because he had had no recognition. He thought no one was interested in his story, he never said a word about it, and I was there to a bit of recognition for the ordinary people. I was incredibly proud that day, and I think everybody standing there was.